Hi, Jason. Welcome to the Maestro Online.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So you have an amazing organ career now, but it didn't begin in New York City where you are now.
Uh, no, my earliest interest in the organ was in Perth, West Australia. I was a chorister at the cathedral there, and that was my first experience with the organ.
So how did you get from Perth to the US?
Uh, my father likes moving around, and he likes moving the furniture every couple of years, and he likes moving around the world every couple of years, and so I followed him.
So how did your organ playing develop and from what age?
Uh, I started in high school,
Yeah.
um, uh, taking organ lessons, and I really didn't have a piano background before that. Um, uh, so I really just started with the organ, um, and decided I really liked it. And I was kind of fascinated by the whole church and choirs and the whole drama of it all. So it was all part of it for me.
So at what point did you know that organ was virtually going to be a career for you?
When I went to college, so I would have been about 18.
Uh-huh. And improvisation is a particular strength of yours. So tell me
It's
how
something
that
I work at.
something I definitely work at too. So tell me about how that came into being, or how the whole concept and the skills for you developed as an improviser.
Um, I had a friend in high school who was uh, just a couple of years older than me, who was really interested in improvisation. And he's still very active, Robert McCormick. And he sort of introduced me to the whole world of people who improvise. And he was very much into Jerry Hancock and listening to recordings
Mm,
of Jerry Hancock, who's a well-known American
yes,
um,
yes.
uh, organist. Um, and then in school, I had some very inspirational teachers who pointed me in the right direction. And uh, it's something that I love to practice and I love to think about. And I think that it's a skill like any other that you can get better at it if you work at it. And so I work at it, and I've gotten a little bit better over the years.
So which of your teachers have perhaps been the most inspirational to you, or have been the most help, or given you the greatest insight, or maybe the greatest methods to practice improvising?
Um, well, the first one was William Porter. And he really takes the approach of improvisation as composition. And we practiced the procedures of composition um, until we got quicker and quicker at them. So, for instance, I practiced making very basic fugues, and I think the first one took me a week. Um,
Hmm.
and then I got faster so that I could make one in an hour. And eventually I got so that I could make a pretty convincing, simple fugue on the spot. And so that was, I think, Bill Porter's approach, which was kind of something new to me and something that I really took to heart.
So,
Another,
so sorry, go on.
go ahead.
I was going to say, did Bill help you then with the sense of structure and a larger scale? Because of course, the problem with improvising a fugue is you've got to know where you're at. You've got to remember
Yes.
your counter subject. You've got to know what's coming next. You've got to know what key you're going to next, etc.
Yes. Hmm. Uh, and there are, well, in some sense, it's uh, easier than a free piece because you always know what's supposed to come next. But
Yes.
uh, I know the next entrance of my subject is going to be in the dominant, and
Yeah.
I'm going to put it in the alto voice, and so it's not sort of a decision that you have to make on the spot so much as you know what's coming next, and you just have to execute it.
Mm. So take us from William Porter. Take us further on.
Well, my other very inspirational teacher in improvisation was McNeill Robinson, and I learned most from him just by watching him play and by watching him compose. Um,
So what did you get from that the most then, from watching him play and compose? What was it you got from that?
I guess a lot of 20th century sort of harmonic techniques. You know, we did a lot of set theory, and we studied Hindemith's theory of harmony.
Hmm.
Um, um, we even did some 12-tone improvisation, which all of it was very new to me because I was kind of stuck in the 18th century. So it was very good for me.
And so this expanded your harmonic repertoire and the ability to improvise in different styles. Then I presume.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And where did you go from there? Take us through your journey.
Uh, uh, well, when I got my first job at a church, I found that I had so much more time than I had when I was in school, and so I started practicing a lot more, and I entered a bunch of competitions. I went to the St. Albans improvisation competition in England, and
Yeah.
uh, I went to Harlem, and I didn't win any of them, but um, it really made me practice, and I really got a lot better just from working at them,
Yes.
from applying.
Of course, you did very well in the AGO competition, though. Later on,
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
that that
That
worked
one's,
out for you.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, what would you say are the most important things then, if you were to advise somebody who wanted to further develop their improvisational skills? Could you talk us through the ways to practice improvisation? Because certainly there will be people that think some people can improvise and some people can't. Whereas actually those who improvise a lot actually practice it and structure how they work and have methods that work for them.
Yeah, that's a big question, and
Yeah.
I guess I have uh, different ways of practicing it depending on what the style of the piece is. Um, at the moment, I've been really trying to work on my sort of French sort of Pierre Cochereau style, and so I've been listening to his recordings and um, writing down sequences that I hear, um, and then practicing those sequences using different textures.
Mm.
And so that's one approach that I've taken. Uh, and what I like to do is practice more than one thing at a time. So I'll practice, for instance, a uh, harmonic sequence and a texture at the same time, and then I'll try to fit it into a form. So I'll be practicing three things at the same time, and sometimes I'll isolate them and then add another aspect. So, for instance, I might just play freely using a particular harmonic sequence, and then I'll say, okay, can I make this sequence sound like Viern's Naiads? I'll pick
Yes.
a texture like that, and then I'll say, now, can I play the sequence, sound like Viern's Naiads, and put it in a dance form or a ternary form? And so I'll practice three things at the same time, like that.
That's fantastic. How did you come to develop that way of practicing? Because presumably that's not how you began your journey. That's where you are now. Were there stepping
Yeah.
stones that got you to that level?
Well, I think it was just variations on isolating one of those things, practicing just making a piece using the circle of fifths and not worrying about anything else, or just practicing with a particular texture and not worrying about anything else. And then the more layers of things that you add onto it, the more difficult it becomes.
So for you, improvising is isolating a key component of a piece and going, what can I do with this component, getting the maximum you can out of it, and then combining it with everything else you already have.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that. An approach to practicing it.
Yes, yes. And have you always been structured in how you practice, or is that something you've learnt from the genius masters that have trained you over the years?
No, I think I'm maybe not as intuitive as some other improvisers that I know, that they can just sit down and just play, and it sounds great. And I sometimes don't know what to do next unless I've got a plan, and so that's forced me maybe to be more structured.
Right. So for you, a plan, a sense of direction, knowing where you're going, knowing what's coming next is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did you get to gain this wonderful position that you've got in New York at the minute?
Well, it was there was a friend of mine who was also from Perth, West Australia, who was the organist here before me. And I'm at a concert and I said, "You're an organist from Perth?" Because there are not very many of us. In fact, we might be the only two. So we went and had lunch, and then the poor fellow, uh, he was a student here, and he went back to Perth and found that they would not let him back into the United States, and so he was stuck, if that's um, the right word, back in
Yeah.
Australia. And so he called me up and said, "You want my old job?" And so that's how I ended up
Wow.
here.
So you were literally the right place at the right time.
Isn't that always how it works?
Yeah, maybe. Jason, thank you very much for talking to us about your journey to where you are today. Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure.